Welcome to the show, everybody. I spent a bunch of time this weekend thinking about the concept of resistance and whether that concept is really enough for the next 4 years. After Donald Trump kind of squeaked through the 2016 election, we saw the resistance kind of emerge, and it was the bumper stickers, I resist, and the whole thing. And basically, it was thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans getting off the sidelines, pushing back against an agenda that felt extreme and chaotic and dangerous. And the thinking sort of was for Trump's first term, if we can hold Trump's worst impulses at bay for 4 years, we'll restore some kind of normalcy. Let's endure this bizarre and dangerous chapter. Then the country will come to its senses. And it sort of did happen in the sense that Donald Trump was defeated in 2020 by Joe Biden. Now, Mark Elias, who's been a guest on this show, has a great piece called Building the Opposition, where he writes that some people today are starting to say the resistance was a failure and therefore it's inappropriate for the second Trump term. And they call it these naive protests. They say it's sign waving that didn't really do anything during Trump's first 4 years. And whether or not a resistance is the right thing for the next 4 years, I completely disagree that the resistance to Trump's first term didn't work. It prevented the Affordable Care Act from being gutted. It helped build a legal and civic infrastructure that took Trump to court and won some important battles. It energized a wave of fresh candidates who transformed the 2018 midterms. And at the end of the day, that resistance led to Trump being deposed after just one term, Joe Biden coming in, reestablishing alliances, and sort of some sense of normalcy. All of that happened. And so for sure, that resistance has accomplishments to its name. Meanwhile, during that time, Republicans weren't just sitting around complaining. They were building, as they often do. We've talked about it. They created these new ideological organizations, media ecosystems. They nurtured the next generation of right-wing influencers, people like Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, the people at the Daily Wire, and others. So they were taking electoral hits. They got 2016, but they didn't do well in 2018. Obviously, 2020 was a disaster, but they never stopped during all of that. They never stopped mapping out what is the next thing? What might a Trump second term look like? Project 2025 was quietly in the works while Biden was president. And now they won. And thanks to Project 2025, the next 4 years are going to be far more radical and much more retrograde than they otherwise would have been because they didn't stop while Biden was president. So notice what MAGA did. They didn't just resist Biden in the way that we, to some degree successfully, resisted Donald Trump. They set their sights way higher. They built a movement to govern, not effectively, but to govern. They fueled the resentment and the retribution. They didn't do some of the let's include everyone sort of things that sometimes we think to do on the left, which are well-intentioned, but often don't actually work to generate the energy that you need. They planned an entire era of right-wing rule, which they are now going to get. So now we look ahead. We have the model of the resistance to Trump's first term. We have the model of what the right did during Biden's term. And now we can't just sit around hoping Trump and Trumpism collapse on their own, because they are starting to make changes and set up an administration that is going to endure beyond Trump by virtue of the changes they want to make to the judiciary and to the way that career bureaucrats are handled by the federal government and all of these different things. So without a doubt, even though I believe the resistance does have successes to its name from Trump's first term, we need something more durable and we need something more forward-looking. Now, in many democratic countries, they have a term for this called the opposition. The opposition is not a one-off protest. It's not just 4 years of defense the way we, to a degree, successfully ran during Donald Trump's first term. An opposition, a robust opposition, is a permanent, fully equipped infrastructure that will challenge the ruling party's narrative and will prepare and offer a serious alternative. Now, in some places, the opposition forms sort of a shadow government. In other places, the opposition is about drafting policies and maintaining pressure until the tide turns. We don't really have a perfect model for the US right now in terms of what opposition looks like, but we have a sense of what it needs to be. And Mark Elias lays it out, and I encourage you to read his article in a few, 5 points really. First, you've got to win elections. So that means professional campaigns with strong candidates. We need to stop with the kind of self-imposed limitations. To really protect democracy, we have to start playing to win. There is not enough playing to win on the left, and you've got to win elections. That's number one. Number two, you do need a big tent. Now, big tent, I know this will scare some in my audience. Big tent doesn't mean you become Republican light. Think back to movements like the New Deal, okay? They had core ideas, but they didn't weed everyone out who disagreed on a few policy details. The movement has to welcome debate, and it has to welcome disagreement, and we've got to do away with the purity test. So we have to grow the tent. Number three, must invest in institutions that will support the opposition. The right is so good at this. They spent decades building think tanks, advocacy groups, training centers. Now they've got the Heritage Foundation, responsible for, to a great degree, for Project 2025, which will become the infrastructure of Trump's term. So we need these robust pro-democracy institutions, and they need to last more than one election cycle. Now, I know many of you will say, oh, what about MoveOn? Who talks about MoveOn anymore? So now it's a different organization. The point is, some of these really need to endure. Number four, total overhaul of the communication strategy, okay? We saw how this failed. This is not Kamala lost because she didn't do Rogan. This is not that. This is, there's a totally missing communication left-wing ecosystem. I'm working with some people now to try to build it. I'm heading down to DC actually this week to talk to more people about it. So that has to be done. And then lastly, the right does everything they can with regard to the courts to try to get what they want. We need to do the same. The legal system did stop some of Trump's worst moves, but we are too shy about using courts, the judiciary, lawsuits, etc. They do it all the time. There are plenty of judges appointed by Democrats in state courts that lean to the left. We need to take advantage of that in the way that Republicans do. So this is just a starting point. This is not the final blueprint. Check out Mark Elias's article. The future of democracy really depends on building a lasting opposition that is ready to take power. The resistance to Trump in the first term successfully resisted a bunch of stuff, but it wasn't ready to take power in the way that we've seen this MAGA movement. They're horrible people, right? Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth and all, but they were ready immediately with people that were going to carry out this vision. I'm committed to it. I'm committed to it, and I'm going to be here. I hope that you will as well. Starting an online business has really never been easier. With no upfront costs, minimal investment, and manageable time commitment, it is an ideal side hustle that can scale. Whether you're supplementing income or trying to transition to full-time entrepreneurship, an online business can give you flexibility and growth potential. And our sponsor, Build Your Store AI, makes it super easy and super quick. Build Your Store uses AI to create your website in minutes with a super simple, intuitive process guiding you every step of the way. Build Your Store can even provide ready-to-sell products so you can start selling right away. Just register and choose your niche and then set up your Shopify. Then you can register for AutoDS to streamline your product sourcing and order fulfillment, which will integrate seamlessly with your Shopify. And boom, you've launched a store. In minutes, you can create and launch a fully functional online store with no upfront cost. With BYS AI and AutoDS, it's a streamlined process, efficient, sets you up for success. Start your e-commerce journey today. Watch your side hustle grow into a thriving business. To get started, go to buildyourstore.ai/Pacman. The link is in the description.